It's Coast to Coast presented by campus2canton.com. Listen, this has been one of the most exciting weeks of college football that we've had this season, and we're going to cover everything for you. I need you guys to do two things for me, though. Go ahead and jump in the chat. Let us know where you are watching from. We want to know who around the country is enjoying what it is that we're doing. And you, of course, you got to be paying attention when we go live in the morning for the tailgate. And then when we go live at night, Coast to Coast. Tailgate starts at 10. Coast to Coast, we go live about right now when one of those primetime games like we just saw, one of the upsets, the biggest upsets that we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. And we will get right into that. So jump into the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. But we start every single Coast to Coast with the rundown. Austin Ace, get in here. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. Austin, Alabama is undefeated no more.
Biggest upset of the past 2 or 3 years. I'm not sure I'm buying that, but it is a big game. Texas A&M beating Alabama 41-38 here. I guess we'll start with Texas A&M. They deserve it. They played a great game, got up early, looked like they were going to blow it, and then held on. Zach Calzada, the guy that's filling in for Haynes King there at Texas A&M, 21 for 31, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns. Gutsy performance. Looked like he was going to leave the game about midway through the fourth quarter with a knee injury. Came back in and led 2 long drives, one to score a touchdown and then one to kick the game-winning field goal at the end there. Jalen Weidermeyer had himself a nice day. 3 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown, trying to stay as the tight end 1 there in the 2022 class. Aeneas Smith, big down the stretch there, 6 catches, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the score that tied the game up 38-all with just a couple of minutes left on the clock. Isaiah Spiller, not the biggest day number-wise, but had a big touchdown earlier in the game and just had a gutsy performance. Moved the ball when they needed him to. For Alabama, Bryce Young was decent, but Texas A&M got after him and showed that he still has a lot of things to work on as a quarterback when under pressure. 28 for 48 on the day, 369 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Felix, it's finally time for me. I owe you an apology. Jamison Williams was great today. 10 catches, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns, including what looked to be the game-winning score before Texas A&M
and the 2-point conversion. And the 2-point conversion.
Sure, why not? We'll just give him credit for everything. And yeah. So it looked good out there. John Mechie had a nice day as well. 7 catches, 88 yards. Brian Robinson, good day through the air and on the ground. 4 catches, 60 yards, and another 147 yards on the ground. He's got like 500 yards total offense or whatever between the last 2 weeks. They've been feeding him, and he's been great. Nobody else really with the significant stat line there. So interesting game overall. I mean, we'll see where Bama is ranked after this, but some big performances there, and down goes Bama, like you said.
They should be number 2. Should they be number 2?
Alabama, I think you have to drop them. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about that Iowa game here in a little bit, beating Penn State. I mean, I think you got to put the undefeated Iowa team that just beat number 4 ahead of them, but I don't think they'll leave the top 6 or 7.
Well, Austin, you had the best assignments of the day today. You also covered that Ole Miss Arkansas game. Man, this week 6 slate was just, I mean, there were so many good games. This was one of them, and I think that we have to consider Matt Corral to be the odds-on favorite to be the first quarterback taken, perhaps, in the 2022 draft.
Probably. I mean, Sam Howell didn't have a terrible day, but Corral was very, very good. 14 for 21 on the day, 287 yards, 2 touchdowns. The passing performance doesn't look amazing, but the way he commanded that offense, this was a shootout. The team just went back and forth, touchdown. He answered every single time he had to there in the second half, and he was dangerous on the ground today too. 15 carries, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had some gutsy runs, stiff arming guys, lowering his shoulder, getting that offense fired up, doing everything he needed to do to get them that win. 52-51 there. A lot of other big performances there. The running game, they announced before the game, Jerion Ely was not warming up, did not play, did not seem to matter there for them. Snoop Connor, I learned his name was Jared today. Not his name was Snoop. 12 carries, 110 yards, 3 touchdowns, a couple of really big ones in the second half when that game really turned into that duel. Henry Parrish had 111 yards as well there. For the receivers, Braylon Sanders, 2 catches, 127 yards, a touchdown. Had a long touchdown late in the second half. Dontario Drummond, 2 for 78 and a score as well. This was just 2 teams throwing haymakers. Like, I got assigned these 2 games today, and they were probably the best 2 games to watch. So thank you guys for that. Arkansas. They lose this game. They scored a touchdown with no time left on the clock, and they went for 2. I applaud them for doing it because you figure they probably couldn't continue to keep up with Ole Miss through a bunch of overtime. So good on CM Pittman there and them for going for it, even though they lost. KJ Jefferson had himself a day. 25 for 35, 326 yards, 3 touchdowns, and interception. Ole Miss, I mean, they weren't rushing him at all. He had all the time in the world, but I mean, still pat on the back to him. He was throwing some beautiful balls downfield there all day. Supporting cast for him, Raheem Sanders. It was today the day we saw him take that starting job. I don't know. It's been a committee, but 17 carries, 139 yards, and had a couple catches there as well. He looked really, really good. Dangerous weapon. Shades of Antonio Gibson there on him. Treylon Burks, the other, big name there for Arkansas. What did he have today? 7 for 136 and 1. And he had 2 huge catches down the left sideline, one-handed up over top of defenders. I mean, the guy's unguardable. This was just such an exciting game. I don't know what else to say about it. Everybody played amazing in this game. It sucked that a team had to lose, but Ole Miss took it.
The early slate of games was absolutely loaded. Maybe it's later on today, or maybe it's on David Debate later this week. We got to talk about KJ Jefferson. He has the size, he has the arm talent, he's mobile. I mean, it does. I think he's a redshirt junior. Can he develop and be a quarterback that can? I'm not saying he's a first-round pick, but into a NFL starter. That's something that I want to track, and maybe we'll talk about it later on. Matt Bruning, let's get in here. Let's talk about this week 6 slate. It was absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. And it started early on with the Red River shootout with Oklahoma going down very, very early in that game. How did it turn out?
Well, they ended up coming back and winning this, and no disrespect to Austin, the games he had, because they were great. This, to me, was the best game of the day because of the storylines that came out of it. We're going to start with the losing team, though, because there were not, I think, as many storylines come out of that. Casey Thompson played really well. We talked a lot about that on Tailgate this morning. He's a really good game manager, Felix, and that's exactly not what you said about him. But you know what? Hey, he is, and he does a good job of distributing the ball to his weapons, and one of those was Xavier Worthy, who had a massive game. 9 for 261 yards, 29 yards average, 2 touchdowns, a massive grab at the end of that, so ended up tying that game up. Looked like Texas was going to keep it a tie and go into overtime. Moore also had a really good game with 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. Bijan was amazing again, 137 yards on the ground and a touchdown, but kind of faded there in the fourth quarter. They stopped feeding for some reason. Thought they should have relied a little bit more on him maybe to get that win. But it was a great game for Texas. It sucked to see that they had to lose this because they really, in my opinion, looked like the better team. When Rattler was on the field for Oklahoma, he was not good. 8 for 15, 111 yards, 1 interception. He gets pulled at halftime, much like last year, and they throw in the freshman Caleb Williams, and he gave that offense a spark. 212 yards, 88 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns through the air, and 1 on the ground. I mean, he looked impressive. We talked a lot about him. We weren't sure what he was going to be as a passer. Goes out in that spring game, plays really well, and then he comes out here against Texas, leads them back, largest deficit in the Red River shootout, brings them back and ends up winning this game. I'm sure we're going to talk more about it later. I don't know how he gives that starting job up. After that, Lincoln Riley would not let him be interviewed. That was kind of a weird storyline after the game for me. I thought the kid deserved all the spotlight after what he just did. They pulled him out of there. Kennedy Brooks, though, has a really good game here as well. 217 yards on the ground, including the game-sealing touchdown with 5 seconds left, runs into the end zone to really kind of seal it there for Oklahoma. You don't want to leave it to a kick, and there was a shot that the kicker could have missed it had he not run in for the touchdown there. Through the air, Marvin Mims Jr. has a huge game, a beautiful catch down the sideline, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns, barely keeps his toes in there to get that touchdown.
One of the best plays of the year.
Absolutely. Hall, 69 yards, and Mike Woods as well, 32. Just all-around great performance, and all these guys looked, let's be honest, 10 times better once Caleb Williams got in there. So it's really, really going to be interesting to see what Oklahoma does now this week after what was just done by Williams and Rattler.
It was supposed to be Spencer Rattler. It was supposed to be Eric Gray, but it ends up Kennedy Brooks and Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams galvanized that team. I don't see him giving up that job the rest of the year, is throwing on the run. And we knew what he was as a rusher. He had the 66-yard touchdown. But what he was as a passer, moving around and being decisive, he was doing the things that Spencer Rattler was absolutely not doing. Just an impressive performance for Caleb Williams. Oklahoma, still undefeated, could potentially be the number 2 team in the country. Let's see. All right, let's talk about Jordan, Ohio State Suckeyes. Matthew Bruning, Travion Henderson really coming into his own, not only in the running game, but also in the passing game and as a pass catcher.
Yeah, I mean, they poured it on Maryland here, 66-17. There was someone on this show, maybe sitting right here next to me, kept talking about Maryland going to upset them. We know Ohio State just keeps rolling. We just don't almost barely beat Nebraska. Talia here had an okay day. He was not good in the first half, really kind of turned it on the second half when Ohio State started throwing their second string out there. But he does get 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Your guy, Tyron Fleet-Davis, did nothing. This guy, who I've never heard of, Shalin Famatua, I don't know how to say his name, goes for 71 yards, does not get a touchdown. Tion Flight-Davis, I think, had 9 yards rushing. It was not a great day for the rushing attack there. They could not get anything going here, which is surprising because the Buckeyes defense so far this year has really not been good against the run. They were able to shut down Maryland. Rakeem Jarrett, Austin posted some tweets about him earlier. With Demas going down, wanted to see if he could stand out. The Buckeyes shut him down. They had Burks on him a lot in this game. He does get the one big catch for a touchdown, but it was kind of surprising to see Jarrett could not get anything going at all against the secondary. For the Buckeyes, Stroud continues to play well. 406 yards, 5 touchdowns. Again, I'm not trying to knock him. He's not really doing a lot deep. A lot of this is coming short. As you see, just 12 yards average per play. He doesn't have to. With those wide receivers, all of them had massive games here. Olave, 120 through the air. JSN, 103 through the air. And Wilson, 84 with 2. He just has to get it to these weapons, and they are chewing up defenses. And that includes the freshman phenom, Travion Henderson, 102 on the ground and 2. And it's 67 yards in the air and a touchdown. I mean, it's extremely impressive to see what he is doing, not playing football at all last year. None of us, I think it's fair to say, thought he was going to be doing anything this early in the season. I thought maybe by this time we'd start seeing carries out of him in the season, and he's, in my opinion, right there with Bijan as the best running back in college. It's just incredible to see what he's doing as a true freshman.
We got to consider that he might be the number 2 back in all of Devy/C2C, especially when you consider what he can do in the passing game. He's rendered Mayan Williams and Master Teague pretty much obsolete, and man, is he fun to watch. All right, we appreciate it, Matthew. We'll come back to you later in the show. Let's go from the number 2 back in all of Devy to the number 2 team currently ranked in Georgia, taking on Auburn. We bring back Mr. Biased Opinions himself. This was a just Georgia being Georgia and suffocating Auburn, Will.
Listen, after last week, everybody was high on Auburn, but I knew that it was more of an indictment on LSU and not Auburn. Bo Nix had probably his greatest game that he's had in his college career last week in Death Valley in LSU, and I knew that it was going to happen this week. They did put up the first points with 3 with 9 minutes left in the first quarter, but they didn't score again until a little bit over 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. So it was all a fluke in Auburn. Bo Nix had a very average day, 22 for 38 attempts, 217 yards, didn't do anything, and 10 rushing attempts for minus 16 yards. Now let's look at UGA. UGA is the real deal. I think after the Alabama loss that we just saw them taking within the last 10, 15 minutes, I think they're going to move up to that number 1 spot.
They should have had it already, but yeah.
Listen. All things go to those who wait. So Stetson Bennett did have a good game. He didn't have to do much, although he did go 14 for 21, 231 yards in the air, and 2 touchdowns. And the number of the day is 6 because there were 6 players that had rushing yards, and then also there was 6 receivers that had some catching yards. So we had Zamir White. I know that you're big on him. 18 carries for 79 and 2 touchdowns. And then on the receiver side, we got Ladd McConkey with 5 receptions for 135 yards and a touchdown.
It's a made-up play. It's a made-up name.
Listen, this nobody was there to sign. But anyway, it was a good game by UGA. They showed they did a real deal. Didn't get cute. There was some surprises coming up towards the start of the game because that line did change. It moved up closer to kickoff. So I'm glad that we're back to earth, and UGA is that real deal. So I'm looking for them to be number 1 in the polls this week.
Number 1 in the polls. I think that they should have had the number 1 spot all along. That defense is really good, and they're winning these games with Stetson Bennett at quarterback. Let's see how they look when they get JT Daniels. They're going to need him at some point. They're going to need JT Daniels. They're going to need to be able to score, 25, 30, 40 points against a really good team. Will, thanks you. We'll get back to you later on in the show. From the number 1 team in the country to his first appearance here on Coast to Coast, Mike Valerie. Mike, we appreciate you coming on with us tonight. Mike, what is your Twitter handle? You're on mute, Mike. What's your? All right. We're having some technical difficulties there. Austin, can you come in here and talk to me about this Penn State Iowa game? I mean, Sean Clifford goes down early. Wasn't really looking good after that with their backup. Not at all.
So listen, I told you guys that Sean Clifford was going to throw at least 2 interceptions. He was happy to oblige, threw one on the first pass of the game, threw another one that was almost more like a punt. That honestly wasn't a terrible one later on before going down with an injury. Penn State's offense actually moved the ball fairly effectively with him in there. But once he went down, it was just over. And I do believe Mike is ready. So I'm going to bump him back in here, let him carry things forward. Mike, how's it going, man?
All right. Yeah, can you hear me now? We good?
We got him. All right.
Good.
Thank you. Hey, you can find me on Twitter at @FF_DirtyMike. Felix, it's so glad to be out here with you. Let me just talk about Penn State real quick. The game's, first off, top 2 defenses in the league. Gotta love that. Gonna slug it out. And Penn State came out firing. It came out 14-3. Looked really good until Sean Clifford went down. And then it was just an absolute disaster after that. Iowa did keep their defense rolling with 4 interceptions the whole game. Yeah. Their top running back went down too. That's Sean Clifford, in case you didn't know. No Kane will never be a thing. But Taquan Robertson came in with only 7 for 21 and 34 yards. That's 1.6 yards per attempt. Looked absolutely terrible. I'm so sorry for everybody that had to be there for that game. Only put up 3 points on 9 drives. On Iowa's side, you got Tyler Goodson. He kept pretty steady the whole time. Again, it just wasn't an offensive battle at all. Even Jahan Dotson and Parker Washington kept quiet. Jahan Dotson here with 8 for 48 and Parker Washington with 3 for 26. Yeah. Again, it wasn't that exciting out there. We'll have to wait and see news on the injury for Sean Clifford. Iowa won this one out, but I don't feel like they should feel good about this win because I feel like it was Penn State's win until Sean Clifford got hurt.
Yeah, I'm going to blame Penn State's offensive coaches. When you've got a new quarterback in there in a big game in a situation like that, I think you've got to move the pocket. You've got to you got to run the ball with the quarterback, and you got to force them into man coverage and then throw the ball deep. I mean, do stuff that's easy. And they did a lot of 3-step drops, asked him to read both sides of the field. You want to give him half field reads, and I just didn't see a lot of that today. And I was kind of surprised. I mean, I was kind of surprised. I don't think that they did him a whole lot of favors, and quite frankly, I don't think his wide receivers did him a whole lot of favors because they got some one-on-one situations and they were bad throws, but you got to be able to adjust to the ball and make those plays when you got a backup quarterback. All right, Mike, we appreciate you coming in. Let's bring everybody in here. Well, wait, are we headlines first? Or yes, we're going headlines first. So Austin come back in here. Appreciate everybody joining us for the rundown and taking their assignments. We appreciate it. Austin, I mean, the lead story today is Spencer Rattler getting benched and what this means for the future for him, for Spencer for him, for Caleb Williams, for the offense. I mean, there are so many storylines. We could finish the rest of this show talking about the impact of this story on the rest of the college football season.
Yeah, Caleb Williams can't give that job back to Spencer Rattler at this point, right? Williams coming in there, they're down by 18 or whatever when he hops in. That offense was dead until he was in there. He gives them something outside of structure. There were multiple times where he either fumbled a snap or was a terrible snap and shotgun. He just picks it up like there's nothing going on and runs the play, or will roll out of the pot. I mean, I've never seen a quarterback just be so comfortable doing that in their first start, especially in a big rivalry game like that. That was very impressive. He was better in rhythm, though, within the context of the offense than I expected him to be. There were multiple throws early, like third quarter. He came in, kind of cold. I don't think he necessarily expected to be the guy today. And 3-step drop, boom, hit the quick out or whatever. I mean, he looked really, really good. And so did that offense. It went with him. So you got to figure that's his job for the rest of the year. Does Rattler transfer? Does he declare? I mean, these are the kind of questions that we're going to be asking for the rest of the season.
Well, let's talk about Caleb Williams first in the offense today. I mean, you mentioned it. Spencer Rattler is supposed to be this, drop back, process the field, make the right read type quarterback, and he wasn't that today. That's why they had to take him out. Kirk Herbstreit was actually pointing it out where Spencer Rattler was missing windows, and then you get Caleb Williams in the game. And he's just kind of effortless, and he's being a gamer, and he's slinging the ball all around. And like you said, first of all, he needs to start catching snaps. But even when he drops them, he still has the poise to pick it up and just make a play. And the pass that he had, everyone's talking about the catch that Marvin Mims had for the touchdown where he drags the foot. But that throw, I mean, he was in the pocket, avoids some pressure, and then makes the throw on the run. He's doing the things that Spencer Rattler was supposed to be good at.
He had multiple throws today that honestly I did not think he was capable of making based on what he showed in high school. The tools were there, but I mean, cross field stuff, 40 yards downfield, hitting guys as they're going toward the sidelines, these small windows. I don't have enough, nice words to toss out about how good Caleb Williams was today. He looked ready. Now, I caution everybody, let's pump the brakes a little bit. DJ, you looked great last year, and we're talking about what he's doing this year. I think they're different, situations around the two, but so let's be a little, I'm a little hesitant to just crown Caleb Williams based off one performance here, but OU looked like OU today, and I think if Lincoln Riley can open up the playbook, it looked like he had been limiting it a lot the past couple of weeks to get Rattler to kind of play within himself. If he can start to open that up a little bit, that makes Oklahoma very dangerous. Now, an undefeated team coming off a big win with a fairly decent run down the stretch here. I mean, let's start talking about Oklahoma a little bit there as well.
Caleb Williams, a must start moving forward. Must start in C2C's potential quarterback one, because he has the potential to get you 100 yards rushing, and Lincoln Riley is going to open things up. The thing that we saw today was the deep passing game, and it was just weird because we saw it with Caleb Williams, who's supposed to be this rusher, but he was the one that was throwing the ball all over the field, throwing it to Marvin Mims and hitting Mike Woods. I cannot wait until they get Mario Williams involved down the field. I mean, I'm going to be really excited about that. You could tell that the team, that the fans, that everyone felt a jolt of energy when Caleb Williams entered the game. All right, many angles to this story, Austin. Spencer Rattler, this is a domino effect. I don't see how he's going to be a first-round quarterback after being benched. That just doesn't happen. I don't see how he's going to be there next year with Caleb Williams now starting. So he has to rehab his image. He has to go find a new team. He's headed to the transfer portal. He, as a matter of fact, he shouldn't even have gotten on the bus with the team. He should have just entered the transfer portal after the game was over.
It's a tough one to predict. A lot of these guys, when something like this happens, there's a big setback. You say they'll probably go somewhere close back to home. Spencer Rattler's from Arizona. Unless Jaden Daniels declares this year, I have a hard time believing he'll go to Arizona State. Arizona is a dumpster fire. He won't go there. If you're looking at Southern California teams, we figure Jackson Dart probably has the job at USC after this year, based on what we've seen from him so far in his brief time there with the Trojans. UCLA maybe, but he's not really a Chip Kelly kind of quarterback. I mean, so now you start, it's really just a guessing game. Anybody that says they think they know where Spencer Rattler's going is full of it. But I think we can say that it probably is not back to Oklahoma. And I agree with you. You can't expect him to go in the first round at this point. Based on what he's done this season, he's regressed. It's not even like he's stagnated. I think he's regressed. I mean, they showed some of those clips today. He's just missing wide open guys. He's holding the ball way too long. I don't know if he's scared, if he's just too confident in his arm. I mean, I really don't know what the issue is, but he's going to have to apply that trade somewhere else.
Shane Hallam, friend of the show, who's an NFL draft guy, said that's a red flag, the fact that he hasn't progressed. So now we need to start considering we might as well put 2023 on Spencer Rattler's name, because he is now a 2023 quarterback. I don't see how he comes out this year. So you have to start considering Bryce Young, DJ Uiagalelei, Spencer Rattler with whatever team that he ends up playing for. Who else? Kyle McCord, the 2023 or 2024?
He's 24.
So anyway, 2024. Yeah. So Spencer Rattler, now a member of the 2023 class, which, quite frankly, they needed a number 2 quarterback, and maybe Spencer Rattler can rehab with another team. Man, there's just a lot. I think that's it for OU. I mean, we could go on, but Kayshon Boutte goes down with an injury. He's carted off with what looks to be a right leg injury. We don't want to speculate here, but you hate to see this. And of course, just on Debbie Debate this week, we were talking about whether it was a question whether or not he should leave now.
Yeah, you don't want to put your lab coat and your stethoscope on, Felix, and give us a prognosis the whole across the country here? No? Okay.
I mean, I could, but no, I'm not going to do that.
I've completely, with my stance is total 180 now. Now that someone near and dear to my heart has been impacted by this. Wrap them all in bubble wrap. Kayshon Boutte, don't play anymore. Bijan, sit down. Zach Evans,
Michael Mayer, sit down.
You're all done. You're all done until further notice. Until I say you can play again. Until you get to the NFL. Yeah. Not great. And not great for LSU as well, who he's basically been their entire offense this year. There's a scenario in which they don't win another game this year. That's a big blow, both just from him on the field and, the other guys there know that he's their best player. It's the same thing that's happened to Maryland here the past couple weeks, apparently, with Dante Demas.
I'm going to be honest. It upsets me when an injury like this happens and then people say, they used to say pay the players and, they shouldn't play. But this is just history repeating itself. We've had Jake Butt, who was a projected first-round tight end. You had Jalen Smith, who was a projected first-round linebacker. You had, always forget the South Carolina running back's name. It was one of the best freshman running backs we've seen, Marshawn Lattimore. Was it Lattimore? It was Marcus Lattimore. I can't remember.
It was Lattimore. Yeah,
Lattimore was his last name, but we keep and then even, quite frankly, even Nick Chubb. Now, Nick Chubb recovered from his injury, but he had a gruesome leg injury that he had to recover from. Once these kids establish their draft capital, like Kayshon Boutte, there's nothing that he could not improve his draft capital anymore. He was the number 1 wide receiver. He was going to be the number 1 wide receiver. Stop playing. They're not playing for the playoff. They're going to play in the Comp USA Laptop Computer Bowl against Western Michigan somewhere. So, they should once they've established their draft capital, get out. These are business decisions. I want to see that become the norm. And maybe with an injury because Kayshon Boutte, high-profile player, everyone knows that he is the best wide receiver in college football, and now suffers what has been speculated to be an Achilles injury. So it's not. That's even worse than an ACL. It's just it really upsets me.
Why did these guys start sitting out of bowl games? Because Jalen Smith got hurt in the bowl game, and Jalen Smith was a top 10 draft pick at linebacker. Was this athletic freak of a kid? Got that really weird leg injury, knee, and had all sorts of complications. So yeah, it takes this happening to one person that's high profile for it to change them. Maybe this will change things. Who knows?
Jake Butt got hurt in his bowl game, and then went in the 6th round when he was projected to be a first-round tight end. That same night, Stanford was playing. And who sat out of that game? Christian McCaffrey. Make the smart decision. All right. What else do we have here? Matt Corral. I mean, Matt Corral, we talk about Spencer Rattler continuing to regress. Matt Corral continues to improve, and that Arkansas team was a good team.
He was really good today. The passing stats, again, you know, we mentioned them earlier. Only in air quotes 287 yards, 2 touchdowns. Definitely not statistically the passing performance we've expected out of him, but it was just he was in control of that team the whole game. You know, the game started off slow, and then it literally was just Ole Miss scored, Arkansas came down and scored. Ole Miss scored. You had to score each possession. It felt like the ante got upped every time you got the ball. It's almost like Russian roulette, and the chamber was empty every time, and it just kept going and going, and the hype just kept building in this game. It was honestly incredible, and the way Corral and Jefferson, but we're not talking about Jefferson now, continued to step up. The 94 rush yards were just he was running so tough. Like a guy that didn't care that he could be the first overall pick, lowering the shoulder, running through guys, getting in people's faces. You know, when he got up after tackles, I mean, he was great today. He's got the tools. We've talked about that ad nauseum. A team last year that he threw 6 picks again. He's cleaned that issue up. I mean, I don't know how many more issues you can really have with him. We talked a little more about that on Debbie Debate this week. About there's still you know, some. They really, like, he's been working very heavily in the RPO. Can he continue to do that if they're not running that in the NFL, things like that? But I mean, overall, he's Spencer Rattler's stock down, he's stock up.
We need to talk later on about fit for Matt Corral, because I think that this is the type of draft class where a quarterback may not go number 1. You might have Kayvon Thibodeau, for example, go number 1, and it's going to be about fit. And he has enough tools where an offensive coordinator could use a lot of what he brings to the table, including his rushing ability, including his scrambling ability. He's a good athlete. You know, I'm trying to think of who's a better quarterback prospect, Matt Corral or Baker Mayfield. I'm going to have to look at Jarek's Magic Line to see where those two players stack up against each other. So, all right. Let's talk. I want to touch on another quarterback just really quick. Now, he came into the game and then was injured when he threw a second interception, but Tyler Buchner. Now, those in the Devi and C2C community are very familiar with Tyler Buchner. Didn't play last year in high school football because there was no high school football in California. But I don't think it's hyperbole to say that at least in high school, Tyler Buchner was a Lamar Jackson level player. I mean, he ran for 1,600 yards his junior year.
Sophomore year.
His sophomore year.
He missed his junior year.
His sophomore year. So he hasn't played football in 3 years. Well, but a player that we were very excited about seeing, and he was up and down today. He ran for a touchdown, threw 2 interceptions, was injured on the last interception. Jack Cohn had to come in to lead the comeback win against Virginia Tech, which he did. But Austin, are you excited about Tyler Buchner and how he played today?
I am, and I don't mind the interceptions. As a guy that hasn't played, you just said, in multiple years, these are the kinds of things he's going to have to work through. He was already kind of a raw passer in the first place. And let's be honest, What is Notre Dame going to win this year? They're not going to make the playoff. Even if they win out, I find that very difficult to believe that they would do that. There's nothing going for them this year. I don't know why you wouldn't. Jack Cohn is not the future quarterback there. I don't know why they wouldn't want to play him. We'll see what this injury is, if it keeps him out long term. But the growing pains with the young quarterback, sometimes you have to go through them. Not everybody can be Alabama that you just plug the next guy in and things continue to hum along. Most teams don't have that luxury. If he's healthy, I want to see him continue to get a shot out there and see what he's got.
And Tyler Buchner is already ranked high enough in our rankings. I think that once we get rid of the 2022 class with Matt Corral and Sam Howell and Carson Strong and Malik Willis, Tyler Buchner is probably going to be a top 10 quarterback in our Campus to Canton rankings, and he should be, quite frankly, because of the rushing ability. He should score a lot of points, and it's good to see that he's getting some repetitions now. All right, let's talk about. That's done. It's headlines. That's over. Let's bring everybody else. Let's bring everybody else into the stream, gentlemen. Mike, I'm going to start with you. We always ask whose value saw the biggest change today in campus to Canton formats. I've got some names, but who do you think whose value changed today in C2C formats?
Oh, can I have like a negative value I want to put out there?
Absolutely.
I haven't seen John Mechie much this year, and I keep wondering when he's going to pop, and it's always Jamison Williams popping for me on the screen. So I think, to me, I thought John Mechie was going to be a first-round talent like preseason. Now I don't know anymore.
You think he still goes day 2, Mike? Or where does he go back for another year?
I think he goes back for another year, but otherwise, like I think he could be a back end day 2. But if he does that, I think it's just going off the Alabama name. I think that would be a big reason why.
Yeah, there are a couple of names here that I've got. We talked about Xavier Worthy. I mean, is there even a close second for wide receiver 2 in the 2024 class? He just put up 236 yards receiving against an OU team that's supposed to have a good defense. They put different corners on Xavier Worthy, and they could not stop him. They could not stop him on all these drag routes across the field. He was getting open. Is there a close second for wide receiver 2 in his class?
Do you remember how we did that Bijan Robinson discussion last year? And I said Bijan was still my number 1 guy, even though he hadn't broken out yet.
No, I do not remember that. It's not in the intro of every single Debbie debate.
I have a very hard time believing that Xavier Worthy stays as the first overall wide receiver in this class, despite the flashes. And obviously, we've had 2 or 3 huge games from him, and then you get nothing from him. So I still think that by the end of this, at least one of JoJo Earl or Aguiye Hall, we think of them higher than we think of him. And that's not anything against Xavier Worthy, who was incredible today. But that's just that's how I see this ending up.
I mean, I've had JoJo Earl in my top 10, I think, since we've had rankings. So I don't disagree with you there. Matt, who you got, man?
I'm going to go with Drake London. I know we've talked a little bit about him. We've had a lot of big discussions about, what he can do. He went out again today, 162 yards. He's currently, if you talk about some of the top guys, at least dominator rating-wise for the top class, I mean, he's above Traylon Burks, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, David Bell, and by a lot. He's sitting with a 43.52 dominator rating right now. That's without counting today's game with, again, 162 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's just continuing to dominate. I mean, I think he's continuing to push his draft stock further and further up, and he's moving closer and closer to the Mike Evans side of the scale than the N'Keal Harry. So he goes out there again today, has that massive game. I mean, I think we need to really start paying attention to him possibly being a first-round pick. I don't know that he jumps Burks or Wilson, but I honestly think he could jump Olave, Bell, and all those guys and end up being like a back-end first-round pick.
Can I ask Matt a question? Can you give me a ranking? Like, where would you rank him right now on your wide receiver prospects? Is he like wide receiver 4 or 5 for you right now? Or would you have him at? And where'd you have him before?
22 class, I had him at 9, or I had him 9 overall, which was 5th, I think. I had him behind Wilson, Burks, Bell, Olave, and then it was him. So I'd probably jump Olave and put him 4.
Okay.
Possibly. Look, I get pegged in the corner as an Ohio State guy, but I feel like I'm more objective against them than other people are. So, yeah, I mean, I love Olave. I love what he can do. I don't have an issue with contested catch guys. I still think there's a shot for them in the NFL. Felix says he hates him, but, God, he loves Warren Jackson and Austin Watkins for some reason. So, I think I do think that if he continues to play this way, he's going to jump Olave.
Will, you got anybody who caught your eye today whose value changed one way or another in campus to Canton formats? I mean, there was a lot going on today in college football, a lot of good games, a lot of good action. Anyone who caught your eye?
Listen, I keep on touching on my guy. You guys may know him as Adrian Martinez. I know him as Heisman Martinez. He almost single-handedly got his Cornhuskers back in the game and almost upset Michigan, right, as an undefeated team out there. But also Will Levis. At Kentucky, I mean, these guys were able to do their thing. Now, the true test is going to be next week when they go up against UGA. So UGA, as we've seen, I mean, they got a real defense out there. Nobody's been able to do anything with them. So we're gonna see next week, and I think after next week, and we're gonna get a better feel for Will out there in Kentucky. But I think he's a real deal. Yeah, beating LSU, by more than 20 points out there today is a good showing. But yeah, listen, Adrian Martinez continues to do his thing. Coming into the season, I didn't even think he was going to be somebody that was going to be drafted. At best, he was going to be one of those guys that was going to pretty much have to raise his hand at the combine and get some extra drills out there and some passing stuff to try to get some more eyes on him and get hopefully a contract. Undrafted free agent, but he's climbing up there. I'm not saying he's going to be a first or second rounder, but he might find himself in the 4th or 5th round.
Adrian Martinez reminds me of a former Lions quarterback, Mike McMahon, athletic and erratic in the passing game. That's exactly what Adrian Martinez reminds me of. No one listening to this gets that reference from the late 90s, early 2000s. I get it. He played with the Eagles. I remember. He played with the Vikings too. Yes, but I would say that his best time was with Detroit when he was backing up Charlie Batch. So another under-the-radar name that I want to throw out here just really quick, Ontario Brown for Northern Illinois. It appears that he is going to be the starter or carry the load for them moving forward. 24 for 94 and 1 today against Toledo. I mean, that's starter-level production. He is a true freshman. And then last week, 16 for 101 against Eastern Michigan. Ypsilanti stand up. Just a name to pay attention to. We will always want to pay attention to these freshmen. He was a football and track athlete in high school. He ran an 11,600-meter dash. A player that you're just want to, put him on a watch list. Another name that we had on watch list because of his transfer was Eric Gray. Now, it's not that Eric Gray has been bad, but his usage at Oklahoma, to me, has been questionable. 6 carries today for 37 yards. But you're seeing him get the ball on 3rd and 10, and they'll give him a draw. He had 2 catches today. I thought that he would be really an integral part of the passing game to make things, especially with Spencer Rattler not playing well. You would think that they would get Eric Gray involved in the passing game to make things easier. They just aren't. I don't know what Austin guys. I don't know what to make of Eric Gray as you can't start him in C2C. And quite frankly, I don't know what to make of him as an option for the 2022 running back class.
He's not physical at all. Like he's soft. So I don't think his physical or his physical gifts offset. He just doesn't want to hit anybody. I mean, it's very obvious when you watch him play. That's what sets guys like Kyron Williams, I think, apart, who are similarly sized in that same class, but aren't afraid to put a helmet on somebody.
Yeah, I want to put off of that.
After one good bowl game, is that really maybe what happened with Eric Gray? Did he just have that one really great bowl game and we all overrated him a little bit?
Maybe. When a guy looks decent in a poop storm, I feel like we are like, well, look what he's doing, okay. There. No, I can't. I was told I'm not allowed to say that.
Okay, sorry.
When a guy does well in a bad situation, I think we think, well, imagine him in a great situation, and that gets a bump. That's that, in my opinion.
Yeah, Eric Gray last year was just. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Eric Gray was just absolutely terrible last year, picking up blitzes, just blocking. He excels in the open field, and he needs an open field to showcase his skills. Otherwise, if he's like in traffic or he has to be asked to block, you don't want him on the field for that.
Yeah. Austin, one more name that I want you to throw out there. This made-up name, Ladd McConkey. Is it Ladd McConkey, this created player who doesn't exist, with 137 yards receiving today? Is he somebody that, I mean, he is a freshman. We thought Georgia was going to be Eric Gilbert, Darnell Washington, Jermaine Burton, George Pickens. But no, it's been Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey and Stetson Bennett. Is Ladd McConkey a name that we should be paying attention to?
I tweeted out earlier today, like, I think we have to start paying attention. I mean, you look at all of the 5-star and borderline 4 or 5-star wide receivers on that team, and granted, a couple of them are banged up right now, but I mean, he's outperforming Arian Smith, Marcus Rosemead, Jermaine Burton, Kiaris Jackson, all those the aforementioned tight ends. Like, and now he has done a lot of it with Stetson Bennett, so we'll see what happens when JT Daniels comes back. Because, Bennett loved Kiaris Jackson for whatever reason last year, and then as soon as Daniels came back, he didn't do anything anymore. So I'm wondering if it's just, the quarterback and him have really good chemistry. But, 6 foot 185, this dude came out of nowhere. He's the 169th wide receiver in this year's class. I've never heard this dude's name before last week, I think. And now it's like, he looks reasonably athletic. He's been winning deep a little bit too. So I don't have any information beyond what he's done the last 2 weeks, but he's looked good.
No, everyone says nobody was talking about some sort of player. Nobody was talking, but every player gets talked about. Nobody was talking about Ladd McConkey. If you have any audio or tweet talking about Ladd McConkey, email it to campus2canton@gmail.com, and we'll give you something for free. All right. Thanks, boys. We appreciate it. That is Value Change. Will, Mike, thank you very much, guys. We are going to check in on the Left Coast games. Kevin Coleman, our esteemed colleague, is in. What's Kevin doing? What is he went on a space trip or what? He's
something like that.
He's an astronaut, right? Something like that. All right. So we're going to check in here with Austin. Austin, we just got a few today, starting with how's Brandon Thomas looking against Tulsa?
Yardage was not amazing. 18 carries, 77 yards, but 2 touchdowns, and he got the large bulk of the carries. So that's good. He fumbled last week. He paid for his crime. He was back in there today. 18 carries. Next closest was Rodriguez Clark with 3. So he looked to have that job back, the faith back of that coaching staff. So good news for Brandon Thomas managers moving forward.
How high, in the 2023 class, how highly should he be considered? Is he a top 10, top 15 running back for us?
Yeah, top 10, top 15, somewhere in that range. Memphis has been cranking out these guys, and it's a similar staff, even though Mike Norvell, the head coach that was there for the Pollards, the Gibsons, of the world that were there, Darrell Hendersons. So the continuity's there. I think that he has just as many tools as any of those guys. He's already NFL sized, over 6 feet, 215, 220 pounds. And he's young. He's got at least another year or 2 in college. But a promising performance coming back there after the benching last week.
Yeah, and I'm trying to see, is this game still going on?
It is
UCLA
over.
and Arizona.
Oh,
UCLA, Arizona?
No, that game is still going on. It's in the third quarter, about halfway through. 17-16. This is actually close. UCLA only up by a point right now. 0 meaningful statistical performances going on in this game right now. DTR, UCLA's quarterback, 3 for 11 for 27 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Zach Charbonnet, averaging 4 yards a carry, not doing much. Britton Brown, 9 for 85. So, nobody, and we don't care about anyone in Arizona. So,
remember UCLA? Remember UCLA to start the season? Austin, I expected a big game from my man Carson Strong. Looks like that game is just starting the third quarter. How did he look in the first half?
Pretty decent.
Pretty decent. Thank you.
4 touchdowns and interception. Yeah, he's looked good. They went down early, and they've rebounded. And now they're up 31-7 on New Mexico. That game's over. I can't imagine Strong puts up much more in this game. Like, I think they're probably just going to sit him here shortly. But yeah, those 4 touchdowns, interception, almost 300 yards. Receiving wise, though, it's Melquan Stovall, a guy that I challenged you to find a team in any of your leagues that have him rostered. Wow. 6 catches, 132 yards, a touchdown. Beyond, Cole Turner has 1 catch. Toatawa has 2 catches. Torrey Horton has 3 catches. It's all these other dudes.
No Romeo Dubs at all.
No,
I don't know if he's hurt. So, okay. And just 7 carries for 28 yards for Toatawa. Yeah. Austin, let's revisit this question. And I know you haven't watched this game, but is Spencer Rattler is no longer in the mix for 2022? Could that potentially elevate Carson Strong, in your opinion, and make him a first-round quarterback? I know that you questioned whether or not he was talented enough to be that earlier.
I wouldn't take him there. And look, sometimes we get every 5 to 7 years, we just get one of these draft classes where even thirsty teams don't really like. They'll take 1 or 2 guys, and that's it. They won't go for the 3, 4, 5 that we've seen in recent classes. I just get the feeling we're trying to predict outside these top 2 guys, and it's just like the answer is none of them. The answer is none of them. We get 2 guys, and then a bunch of guys go in the second. That's just what Carson Strong feels like to me. I don't know. We will see. But I know you. I won't ruin your bit about him not being able to rush. But he can't, and I think that's going. NFL that's going to knock him a little bit.
I mean, he's bad. He can't run the ball, so he's having a bad. As a matter of fact, let's see. He's got 2 carries for negative 11 yards today. So there we go. Austin, thank you for the left coast check-in and for filling in for Kevin this week. Do we got anything else to talk about? Anything else to talk about, or did we cover everything? I think that we've covered everything, and you know what? It's late enough. Thank you for watching Coast to Coast. Good night, America. We'll see you next week.